You are about to opt in to Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
All right.
Alrighty.
Okay. Well,
Good morning.
You look a little You're a little nervous.
What?
You look a little nervous.
Why?
See that, guys? You made Sunita nervous now. Now you're pissing me off, making my girl nervous.
All right, calm down. So corny.
Nobody even knows when we're joking, when we're not. I think that's part of the problem too. People don't know. I think they take us very seriously too. A lot of times.
I guess. I don't know why, but
especially those Guns and Bitcoin guys. Oh my, what a disaster. What a disaster. We love you, Guns and Bitcoin. It is not a Monero conference. Don't worry. I don't think anybody thought it was. We love that you're doing it. Just wish we could attend. We've been eliminated as a sponsor there.
Oh god.
That's part of the fallout here, which is just unbelievable amount of fallout. But we're still standing. We're still
standing.
We're still going strong.
We're chugging through.
The Monero protocol is still working just as well as it was last week. In fact, I think transactions hit a new all-time high. So don't worry about that. Despite what Chris Sky may be telling you, or Jeff Berwick. I don't think Pirate Chain was peaking in transactions this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos to them for not jumping in on that bandwagon.
I mean, that was silly, the Jeff Berwick thing.
Yeah, it was.
Come on, man. What are you doing? You're just showing a total lack of understanding of how crypto works, and you're just gonna lose respect from the people that think you know what you're talking about. I get your concerns there with the politics, but that has nothing to do with the protocol. So if you want to pump Pirate Chain, go for it. But don't try to act like your reason for what Pirate is now better than Monero is because of a Monerotopia debacle. It makes absolutely
it's completely
no sense.
Separate.
And by the way, if we do this conference, Jeff, you're more than welcome to attend, and we encourage you to attend, and maybe you'd come speak.
Maybe.
Yeah. So yeah. What do we gotta?
So this week went well.
Guys, we're happy now just because I think that's just in general our personalities.
Like we said, we chugged through.
Yeah.
But it's been.
This isn't our first rodeo either. We ran for U.S. Congress, and it was extremely stressful. Like you have no idea. Like it was extremely stressful, and it was actually very similar to what this last week was like. But we had that for
nonstop for months.
For months and months and months and months. And it's basically this feeling of you can't please everyone, and you're stuck in the middle. And
yeah, you can't.
You're trying to stick to your ideals while also not pissing off people that are supporting you and should be supporting you. So it's like that's the balance. And so that's kind of basically what happened with all of this, right? It was this balance of trying to stick with our beliefs in free speech and liberty while also not disenfranchising or upsetting part of the community because of some other person's opinions. And let's get into it. Because there is a lot, there's tweets happening.
Yeah, we feel like, we wanted to do this because, we need to tell you our side of the story, right? Because also social media just kind of blows everything up too. There's like 800 threads and people are commenting on past stuff, new stuff, and it's just been a whole hot mess.
Vic is on. He's saying he's having gratuitous coffee, so that's nice. So, cheers, Vic.
Cheerios.
Cheers. Sunali's enjoying it. Cheers, Sunali.
Cheers.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of, I would say, misinformation, but a lot of different opinions, and we want to clarify what our perspective was, right? It all happened very fast.
Yes, it did.
It was like a car accident, right? And I guess we didn't hit the brakes fast enough, and we got nailed.
Yeah, really nailed.
But what did happen? So it all started with that video, our last Monerotopia.
And
we were giving an update on the conference, saying who's going to be attending, who's confirmed, and we brought up the Chris Sky character, and which, by the way, he wasn't confirmed at that time.
He wasn't confirmed. Even on the website,
yeah,
it said to be confirmed at that time.
Right. And we went into talking about him on Monerotopia, our reasons for why we were inviting him, and we understood he's a controversial figure, and there's a community member who reached out to us who's concerned about him, but we didn't do our due diligence yet, and we're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. And then so that community member took that as Doug Tuman is giving a platform to a racist. Doug Tuman is a right-wing extremist, and it spiraled out of control from there. And he did that all on Reddit rather than, number one, coming on the Monerotopia show because he was apparently watching it. Number two, just emailing us.
Like emailing us again. Sure, he emailed us last week, but like we said before, this is a part-time gig. This is a passion project. We have our day jobs, which requires a lot of our attention. We have our families to cater to. Again, you all know we're getting married, so we have wedding things to go through.
Don't let him get to you, Samir. Don't let him get to you.
No, but it's unfortunate because we do try to reach out to everyone. But in this case, we wanted to do our research. And yeah, we wanted to do our own research.
We just weren't given the chance to. Like, you guys have no idea how much we got going on. Well, I'm sure everybody's got their things going on, right? But our things are going on in the public way, and people are demanding and they're expecting things, and I get it. And some people do think we do work for the Monero community already. I did my CCS proposal. That hasn't started yet, by the way. So I don't know if that means anything in changing how things are currently viewed, but that hasn't even officially started. We were trying to get the Monerotopia event going because that was one of the things that I had put in the CCS as like an extra, and also it'd be great if I get a conference going. So I tried to get that going now. So the hope that when my CCS did start, we'd have momentum, be able to get it going. And man, we had momentum. Like last week, we were on top.
We were so excited about this conference.
The event is coming together. The show is growing. It's all working out. I'm going to maybe, I'm ready now maybe to move on to do the full-time thing and start the clock for the CCS. And now I'm like,
whoa,
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know. Self-preservation kicking in. But yeah, the other thing with this Eric Cohn guy, which, by the way, man, if you're watching,
please join us.
Come on up. You could turn off the video, but there's something to be said of having interaction. Now, face-to-face is like person-to-person is even better, but obviously we're not capable of doing that. But this is, talking, interacting. You can read each other's mannerisms. You could hear the sound in each other's voices. There's something to be said about that, and especially when there's a difficult issue to be resolved. So if you're out there, man, come on up. Let's talk about it rather than just, going on a tirade. The other thing was it wasn't an email. Like, that wasn't the first interaction. We tweeted, and then I responded to him. I said, yes.
Email us.
I understand there's a lot of things. I see some different posts that you made. Consolidate it all into an email, and we'll take it from there. Which I think should have showed him that we weren't blowing him off. We were understanding of his concerns, but we wanted to do it the right way. We wanted to do it the right way because although this is a private conference in that, it's not a public forum. This isn't out in, the town square. It is a private event, after all, being run by Monerotopia. So we can at will say, you're booted, you're not, right? And still not be violating anyone's free speech. But it is a conference essentially about free speech, at least in my mind. That's what I think Monero is at the end of the day. It's a protocol for for creating a way to embody free speech in a protocol that can't be stopped in the form of transacting value. If anybody people don't get that or understand that, then you don't understand the purpose of cryptocurrency or Monero. That is its purpose, allowing people to transact peer-to-peer without being censored. And that is a form of speech. That is a form of speech in some ways more powerful than the spoken word itself, because it's how people are using their money. And there's a lot of power there. And I want to live in a world where something like Monero exists that allows that. And it comes with good and bad, because, once you have a tool like that, it's not just people like us that are going to be using it, but you're going to have nefarious people using it for bad things like cash itself, right? And we all know that. We talk about this all the time. And that's obviously one of the themes that was going to take place at the conference. And then for us to just say, all right, dude, you're eliminated because of X, Y, and Z, because there's accusations against you. We're now being contradictory towards our beliefs in what we think the protocol stands for, which is censorship resistance. And maybe this is the point you're about to make, and I'll let you make your point anyway. And we weren't inviting Chris Sky to come and pontificate about his beliefs in politics. It was to talk about how he uses Monero and how he sees it as an important tool, because he is whatever on his own political mission, and he needs a tool like this so that he can continue to move forward without being stomped out by a majority, without being stomped out by a tyrannical government. It wasn't to hear about, what his beliefs may or may not be, or what his accusations against him may or may not be. It was to hear him talk about it as a tool, which we know he's capable of doing, because we had him on the show. And we had him on the show. That's all we talked about. He didn't say
people loved this show.
I mean, we could read. I don't think there were any racist statements made, or he alluded to, saying something extreme. I would have most definitely responded, and I don't remember that taking place. So that's why we're giving him the benefit of the doubt, because we already saw him perform in that way.
And everyone enjoyed that interview. Like, we got really high number of views on that. So
right. But on the other side, there were these crazy accusations that were made against him.
Yes.
And Chris has yet to really dispel them. And so we were giving him the benefit of the doubt. And then when all shit hit the fan, we reached out to him as this was all transpiring. And he never did give me a good answer. No. And that started to be like, all right, dude, like now we're going to put ourselves out there for you, and you're not even willing to say those are, he was just basically saying, well, it's up to the accusers to prove it, as opposed to him to have to respond. And like I said, we ran for Congress. We were up against these things all the time, but we would respond. And I had ridiculous accusations casted against me, kind of like they're being casted against me now, that I'm some right-wing extremist, but even more ridiculous. And I'd respond and I'd give answers. Well, no, because of this, no, because of this, whatever. But he, rather than going through that post and giving reasons for why he may have said some social thing on social media, whether or not he actually meant it, what he meant by it, he's just like, no, I don't need to. And which is also fine in a way if you are an extreme believer in free speech, and part of me really is. But when it then becomes that we're being held accountable for what his past actions may be, then that becomes a problem. That's what the community started to essentially do. Yes. And they were doing it on Reddit. And then we had people hitting us up privately through DMs, people that we have a lot of respect for and that we really listen to, that's also put pressure on us. And we're like, shit, like
what the fuck is going on?
So basically you're going to say you are going to hold us responsible for the words that he says. And, we're not going to take that type of risk. And the analogy I gave is, imagine you're throwing a Bitcoin, because we had that guy TD. What's the guy's name? T-Dev. He was like samurai wallet guy, and awesome dude. Seemingly, I don't know. We've been communicating on Twitter. We're gonna get a drink at some point if we ever run. Or if ever comes to New York. He put out a tweet like, Monerotopia is like a normie conference because they censored somebody, blah, blah, blah. But dude, and this goes out to anybody, like, imagine you're throwing a conference, and it's a Bitcoin conference, and Satoshi Nakamoto is going to be at your conference. I'm not talking about whatever the hell BSV guy. I'm talking about, for whatever you imagine, this is an analogy. This isn't a real, right? This is a hypothetical, guys. Okay. And Satoshi, he shows that he's actually Satoshi. He moves some coins around, whatever. And he's like, I want to come to your conference. I want to talk. I have a lot of things to say about crypto and Bitcoin. I think it lost its way because its number go up. I mean, that'd be awesome, right? If he was going to do that. Imagine he was going to do that. He was going to be one of the speakers. And then you had a couple other speakers. One of the other speakers was like maybe this Chris Sky guy with this questionable background. And Satoshi hits you up. He's like, yo, I'm backing out of the thing. I'm not coming if this guy's in. What are you going to do? I mean, you want to keep the conference together. You want the most value that the conference can possibly provide, which would be having Satoshi Nakamoto there. So you're probably going to drop Chris Sky, even if you believe that, people should be given the benefit of the doubt, and, if they want to come and talk about the protocol. And that's kind of the situation. Obviously, it wasn't as extreme. It wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto, but
we were cornered.
There was pressure being put on us to the point where...
And then it was on a Sunday. It was a messy day.
Anything else you want to add? Because I know I've just been babbling.
No, continue. So. You're expressing also my opinion.
So that's what we felt like, and we had to act in the moment, right? We had to act in the moment, which maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should have just like ignored it. But it was like pretty high pressure. Like, I'm out. If
people were out, people.
And this leads us to the thought we had of, well, we see ourselves, that's the other thing. We just speak our mind, guys. We're not hiding anything, and maybe that's part of the problem, but we're going to continue to do that. So we have three options the way we see it. One, just completely cancel the conference, right? Because it has been tainted.
Yes.
Two, keep the conference as is, and it could be still a great thing. We have some good Monero speakers come out, and it would potentially be great. We don't know how the community overall is going to react. Like I said, we already have people like TW, I'm not going to the conference. And then, maybe others would follow suit and protest it. We have other people, without naming, because I don't want to name names, because I'm not trying to create more drama here, but somebody else who's helping very much, with the conference itself, saying like they're not going to participate if that's the case. No offense to you, Doug and Sunita, but if you keep the conference as is, I'm not going to participate because I think it was wrong.
Yeah, we're torn. We don't know
like whatever direction we go, there's people that are going to like supposedly be pissed and protest it and not
participate.
So the third option we were thinking of, and this is as a way to remove us as the gatekeepers, would be to essentially create this novel conference format, which I've never seen anybody do.
Drum roll.
I'm sure it will be potentially a complete disaster.
Yeah, probably. We'll get
where we let
again.
people book themselves. Okay. And we started to design it, and we were running it by some people. People think it's pretty cool, and we want to talk to people in the community about it. But essentially, people would book themselves they would send a Monero down payment, right? So let's say we have 8 speakers.
We have 8 slots.
8 slots, or maybe more. Like I was thinking, like a half hour. You half hour slots,
each,
right? So maybe 16 half-hour slots or something. And it cost 1 Monero to book a half-hour slot, refundable though. You get that Monero
Like you
back,
get it back once you talk.
if you come and you talk. If you want to do an hour long, it takes two Monero to reserve it. And we essentially let people book themselves. The idea by asking them to use Monero to make the down payment, we are kind of filtering out non-Monero people. Like, it's like you're going to be a Monero person if you're doing that to some degree, and then it takes the onus off of us as being the gatekeepers. So now you can't really blame us. You shouldn't have been blaming us in the first place.
Yes.
For the words that people would say on a stage. But now you really can't, because we're just truly the platform. Like Reddit itself, right? We're just a platform at this point, and we're letting people come and book themselves as speakers, kind of like an open mic thing. And then that just changes the whole perception, how people perceive us in terms of being the people behind the conference, right? We're no longer gatekeepers, and it doesn't allow anybody to be a gatekeeper at that point. So that's an interesting concept we want to talk to people. And then there's questions of, do we then even make it where we don't stream the talks? We say no video in the room. I don't know. I think maybe we leave it streaming. So because there's those that want, they don't want to come and talk unless they know they're going to be able to get their info out there. They're going to put a lot of work into making the talk. And they want to be able to, get the talk out to the world beyond the 200 people in the room. So that would be XMRtopia Uncensored.
Okay.
Yeah. Because people are saying that. People say the idea is brilliant. Okay.
Yay,
it is until it isn't.
Until it isn't. Yeah, we get
change
attacked.
the name, Guns and Monero. Yeah. I like that. So tempting. So tempting. I like that. So we'll open it up to the community, but first we're gonna bring a guest on. That's the other thing. We're trying to format the show, right? So
it's a little more organized.
And we were all excited about that last week.
And of course, that went to shit. But
before it went to shit, Sunita had put some good content together. So we want to organize it. So every show will have kind of a guest segment, a news segment, and then an open stage segment, which essentially is what we have, but now in a little bit of more organized
way.
So are we ready to move on to the guest segment?
I believe so. Let's put it on, guys.
All right.
The Monerotopia guest segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys.
I love it.
Alrighty.
So,
wow, I was a little nervous.
Guest up here. Crypt0 Bear.
Howdy.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning. How's it going?
Pretty good. Glad to see you guys survived all the fallout of last week.
Yeah, we're surviving.
We're smiling
chugging.
now.
Yeah, we're smiling.
We'll see what the blowout is after this show.
What you guys need to do is after the show, make sure to DM me your Monero address. I'll send you guys some money. Make sure you go out for dinner. Just enjoy a little night out so that you guys can have a little bit of fun, downtime, all that stuff. It's terrible to have a tough week. So for sure.
Thank you,
Appreciate
man.
it. Thank you so much.
That's another thing we should say, right? All the people, like there was the good, but the bad, but all the good too. So many people
reached out that, we didn't think would, and so many kind words and support, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That helped us. That helped us move forward throughout the week, which was nice.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of support. And remember, there's a lot of people who might not be as vocal about issues that they're against, but there's a lot of people who are unvocal about issues and ideologies that they're very passionate about, but they just don't get voiced as much,
Exactly. People are saying can you bump your volume up on your end?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, see if you can do that. I think our volume maybe just high, but
no, our volume I think is. How's our volume, guys?
I guess compared.
Is this better?
It's
fine I think so. Us. Yeah, it's fine for us, but
what's everybody think? I know they do an automatic adjustment on the stream, so
okay, so it'll be fine.
So Crypt0 Bear, I mean, so what do you think of this new concept? Do you think it's something we should try to pursue?
First off, I think you're still going to run into issues regardless, right?
No.
So no, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. So let me first preface what the real cause of a lot of these problems are, right? Instead of just censorship versus not censorship, right? As Monero gets bigger, we're going to be casting a bigger net. An example, you've been around the cryptocurrency space for a while. What was the initial reason you got into it? When you heard of Bitcoin, was it numbers go up? Was it, oh, it helps you? What was the primary reason that excited you about Bitcoin?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
It's the cypherpunk ideals, man. 100%.
It's free money for the people, by the people, that cannot be stopped, regulated away, or controlled by private interest. And I think that a lot of the Monero community comes from that old school cypherpunk feel for ideals for being able to have that free speech money. But as you get more popular, you're now appealing to more people who don't come from that background, right? So something about the censorship versus not censorship there are people that are for free speech, but then they say, but we don't like hate speech. So there's certain things, and I'm not a proponent of that, but I need to explain the opposing views for me to be able to give a dignified answer to why I oppose that. So with the hate speech debacle, and I'm explaining this with a very US-centric approach because we do not have hate speech laws, but there are countries that have official hate speech laws, and a lot of them are that there is inflammatory speech against certain groups or individuals who have historically had wrongdoings done onto them. Therefore, they take a no tolerance, zero tolerance approach to those. But I'm starting to see that from that original ideal to now in US-centric, especially with a lot of the younger crowd, I see that firsthand, that there is this ideal that we need to be on the lookout for things that are, quote, problematic. The problem with that is what is problematic or politically incorrect gets watered down to trying to find something as a virtue. Because if you can find a wrongdoing, shut it down, that's a good virtue. So a lot of people that are not for censorship, but they're de facto censoring speech, do so under good faith of trying to silence speech that they don't agree with because they consider that a good virtue, right? I'm a proponent of free speech needs to be absolute. You cannot regulate what is allowed and what isn't, because at that point, for example, there are proponents that speech needs to be regulated if it's not factual, right? If I would go out there and I say, everybody, drinking water is bad for you, you need to drink some soda or something, right? And it's not factual. There's people that feel like I should not be allowed to have a platform. The problem with that is who gets to decide what the factual information is, right? It is very easy to weaponize this cancel culture to fit a narrative that benefits people on both sides. Keep in mind, you weren't just getting canceled by somebody that didn't like what one of your guests might have said back in the day. You were also going to get canceled by people who agree with you for not being cypherpunk or real enough, right? So it's kind of, and this is a tactic that has been used historically to destroy any small group that starts to get power that could potentially tip and really question who's in power, right? So from Occupy Wall Street to historically a lot of groups, there is a lot of infighting, and there's, tool sets out there that have been, and frameworks that have been built on how to destroy movements, political movements, in a way that they destroy themselves from the inside. So I really think that we need to be proactive with the decision to cancel culture within the Monero community. And this could be done in different steps, right? One, we can't just shout back free speech or nothing, because a lot of the people who are newer or might come from a different background, right? And I tend to see that in a lot of European backgrounds, there's a more historical context for being able to explain with hate speech laws and things like that. But a lot of the younger kids, especially here in America, there is a lot of that being taught, that there is a virtue in being able to fight what they deem as oppression and distilled down, there is speech that could be problematic and not being inclusive enough, and it's used to shut down a lot of discourse. The problem with that is there's people then on the lookout for anything that could be considered, beyond the political realm, and it's used to shut down a lot of discussion. The easiest way is we need to be grown-ups about it in our community and agree. We are not going to agree with everyone idealistically. I, for example, should be allowed to go to a conference and listen to an atheist speak, and I'm a Christian. I can say that I don't agree with that speaker's, life ideologies, but we're there to talk about the things we agree with, which is some cryptocurrency conference, or it could be we're going there to talk about music or something, right? And I find this a lot in the music space. I don't agree with a ton of people from a personal perspective, but we're grown-ups. We can agree to disagree. The problem we run into is when we proactively don't want to listen to an individual because we don't like a part of their life. And I don't do this to protect certain individuals or not others. I have to say free speech needs to be absolute or you get nothing. The moment we start to pick and choose, it is just a matter of, and you've been in politics, it is a matter of dissuading what the correct political move is. And at that point, you have weaponized this thing that you just need to convince a large enough amount of people that, oh, well, we don't like this person. And this stuff changes back and forth, back and forth. That's really what I think that's going to be really hard for us to move past. We need to be okay with, the way I put this is, would we be okay with somebody who is a criminal, convicted felon for doing terrible crimes, right? And he wants to give a talk on something, how the random X algorithm on our computers, right? And how it can be, if there was some sort of, he did research and he showed how he can increase the, ASIC resistance of it if we do these things, and goes to a technical talk. But there's people who do not agree with his criminal background or things like that. Should we enable to ignore what people can say that people want to listen based on all this other stuff we don't agree with? And I think that's what we need to move towards as a community is we can agree to disagree because ideologies cannot always coexist with each other. I should be okay. I eat meat. There might be a vegetarian. We can go about it in a very, understanding way. And we can also go about it in a very respectful way. But at the end of the day, a vegetarian and a carnivore are not going to be in the same ideology. It clashes. Yeah. And that's the problem.
The real problem, though, as I tried to explain, and because I agree with you on all this stuff, I'm just as idealistic as you are. It's when you then try to do something like which requires centralization and is run a conference, right? And run a conference where you're essentially the people responsible for the conference, right? And now you've become the gatekeeper of that conference, and then you have pressures being put upon you by those participating in the conference. And I'm not just saying people saying, well, they don't like, but literally the other speakers and sponsors involved, to the point where they're saying they're not, they want you to go one way or the other way. And that's why we wanted to try to come up with this new scheme as an experiment, right? So trying to turn lemons into lemonade and make an experiment with it and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, that's why Monero, like we said, that's why Monero exists in the first place and why it's so utterly important, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't
put in a terrible tough spot too, because you put this and then when you have speakers that want to drop out, right? And this is when I'm saying that as a community we need to agree to disagree. There are speakers who wanted to drop out and things like that, but they need to realize that for the greater good of the Monero community, we need to be okay with sometimes we will be in the room with people who we disagree with at an ideological, spiritual, political, whatever level that is. As long as we're respectful, we should not be creating these cliques. That was mine. I think the reaction from a lot of the community is
people are going to do what they want to do, right? They have to
Yeah.
protect their brands, their identity, and you can't fault them for that, right? They may not be as idealistic about you in those regards too, and they may weigh the pros and cons and being like, well, it's more important that I protect my personal brand or my company's brand. And I'm not going to fault people for that. That's just the issue with the centralized conference.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought if we propose it as this, then they can decide if they want to participate once again. And under this scenario, they even have more of an argument to be made where, well, I had no responsibility of who was going to be speaking there, right? I was just a fellow speaker, and
you could go the donation route.
People were self-booking, so you can't blame me for who spoke. I was just a participant, and you can't blame Doug and Sunita either. They were the ones that just built this system that allowed people to come and self-book and run a conference. So that was our thinking with that.
You could set up a wallet, right? And then you have sub-addresses for that. Do a view-only wallet. And then each sub-address represents a speaker or a person that, submitted to be a speaker. So you do a call for papers up till X date, right? And this is being used for like the Monero Art Fund. People are donating money for what they want to be done for, whatever piece. You could do that. Then this way, it's the Monero community is actually investing their money directly on who they want to be a speaker and things like that. This way, it's completely up to the community. You're letting it be voted. You can't even tie a specific handle name or whatever. Yes, it could be, somebody could just donate a ton of money themselves, but then there's a cost associated to that, right? And as long as it's the only thing you got to watch out for on that is that it would be, you don't want somebody donating a bunch of money and using it as an ad campaign, right? We're small enough as a community that this shouldn't be an issue. I think if we're going to go that route, it's easier to do that, a call for papers, and then let the community vote. We've got a lot of anonymous tools that we can use Monero as a voting mechanism. All your listeners could, vote in at a specific time and things like that. Or the other route is I know it was such a tough week for you guys and everything, but this is such an edge case of just everything kind of taking the worst turn at every point, right? This isn't something that should constantly be happening. It just really felt like somebody lit a fire, then everything else caught on fire. So the other route is, just continue as is, and eventually people have a short memory. And there is no issue with that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the other thing to realize too is, what is the Monero? We keep saying the Monero community, the Monero community. I see people saying Monero. In many ways, there is no Monero community, right? Geonic phrased it well. There's no internet community, right? There's the internet, and people use it, and they're of all different communities. And if Monero is going to succeed, it's going to be the same thing. And that's the growing pains we're feeling right now of people with different ideologies that are using a protocol, and they're using it because it's to their benefit. And whether or not they're using it to their benefit because they like that they could anonymously send money to the Black Lives Matter movement, or they can anonymously send money to Chris Sky. But the point is, it works as a tool for them for those purposes. And that's where we want to be. That's a sign of success. But we're trying to, at the same time, keep the community cohesive around the original ideology of what the cypherpunk ideals are.
So let me ask you that part. Do you think that cryptocurrencies are inherently political? I'll let you answer, and I'll tell you my opinion.
100%. I mean, they're run by people you have a protocol, but it's a consensus system, right? Just like that's like saying, is democracy inherently, in my mind, is democracy inherently political? Of course it is. That's what the purpose of democracy is. Cryptocurrency is the same thing. It's an invention that allows people to reach consensus. And when you have people trying to reach consensus, there's politics involved. What's great about crypto, though, it allows you to reach consensus in a way where everybody essentially gets to participate. That's the one CPU, one vote. But I do definitely think there's politics involved, and that dictates the direction of these projects.
And I agree completely. And I think a lot of people forget that there's a reason that a lot of the original Bitcoiners tended to lean a lot more free market libertarian. It was because this internet money was this holy grail of freedom loving ideals, right? It was, the last frontier. Once there's money there, people exist outside the control of powerful government entities, corporate, whatever the powerful entity. But what I'm starting to see now is that those ideals are watered down a lot. In the Monero community, they're probably still living a lot more than in other communities. But now you see people that see cryptocurrencies as a potential threat to centralized power structures, and they really see that as a problem. And it's insane because they start trying to throw accusations of cryptocurrencies when the reality was the early days, that was the goal of Bitcoin, for example, right? It was to just be this alternative money online, right? And I think that there is an inherent political life force in that in cryptocurrencies are inherently anti-centralized power, right? Forget about the decentralization of nodes and stuff, but cryptocurrencies, just by existing, are already kind of a problem to power structures, because technology, as agnostic as it could be towards politics, technology, when it changes and revolutionizes the way that power is distributed, right? They become a political thing, right? Meaning whoever's in power, cryptocurrencies takes power away from them. And I think that whoever's in power is always going to look at tools and technology that is taking power away from them as something that is politically their opposition. So I think when we're distilling this down further, it gets really difficult for us to stay apolitical, because now there's accusations that if you're free speech, you're an extremist, when the reality is, well, no, it's just people can agree to disagree. And it's just, if your biggest virtue is free speech and being able to communicate and express ideas, bad ideas are fought in an open debate, not locked away, because once you do that, whoever decides that gets to control a narrative. And there's people out there that really feel like that's healthy for communities and things like that. And at the end of the day, like you said, there's different communities within the Monero community, right? And it might just fractionalize those. My bigger concerns are that it fractionalizes it enough where people start trying to destroy Monero as a project without realizing, if somebody who's anti-capitalist wants to do stuff on Monero, I fight for their right to do that. I fight for their ability to do that, even when I completely disagree, inherently with it. The problem is a lot of times that doesn't go the other way around. You know?
Yeah, no, all good points. I think we're just to move the show along.
Yeah.
I think we're going to skip the news segment this week, although we had a bunch of news things. I think the biggest news is just that transaction count hit an all-time high. I'd say that's the biggest news of the week. But we had a bunch of other ones we want to touch on. But I think we should jump to
the viewer segment.
The viewer segment.
Yeah.
I want to make one other point too, in regards to what you're saying. If Monero works, if cryptocurrency works, things like this cannot tear it apart and cannot stop it. It's anti-fragile, right? So it's this idea that everybody's using this protocol because they have a need for it, right? So we could talk politics all day. We could have our disagreements on which way we want to go, but ultimately it makes sense for us to use the protocol because we have a need there. and that's going to outweigh everything else if the incentives are properly aligned. And it appears to be the case of what we saw happen with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, despite all the anger and whatever that happens over there and drama, it continues to grow. Network continues to grow and goes up. Same thing with Monero, right? We're all here talking, but it's the tip of the iceberg. What really happened this week was transaction count hit an new all-time high. That's the thing to keep an eye on, is people are actually using it and they need to use it. But let's head to the what's our segment called? The
viewer segment.
The viewer segment.
It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
Right. Good job.
Yay.
That looks great.
Thank you so much, Crypt0 Bear. And stay on.
I'll just
but let's bring some more people up.
Yeah. We got
Monero UK. Tyler.
Hello everyone. How's it
Geonic.
going? Geonic. Tyler. Monero UK. Oh, sorry, I muted you.
Let's let Geonic chime in here.
I fully agree with everything Crypt0 Bear said. I mean, he's the guy. You're super well spoken. I wish we'd hear more often from you. But I do have to play a bit of a devil's advocate here, because this guy is just illegitimate in my eyes on so many levels and does not deserve to be associated with Monero at all. This guy turned the death of 8 people at the concert of this Travis Scott guy. He turned that death into an anti-vax conspiracy. He said those people have been vaxxed and that's why they died. You can't argue with that kind of person. You can't have a legitimate conversation with this kind of person. He does not deserve to be on the stage, period. And there has to be a line drawn somewhere where someone who is either demented or is spreading this sort of misinformation is not allowed a stage. So
that's a good point.
From that angle, I see the outrage, and I see it as legitimate, because he's not. I mean, the guy's not with it.
Now, how about in the scenario where it was people can self-book themselves with putting a Monero down payment?
Oh, love it.
Now, so what happens though if a Chris guy does it?
He can get booed off the stage, and people can say they can react or whatever.
Exactly, that's the way I see it. Then it comes down to real world, right? And then it's real world. People don't have as much guts when they're sitting there in front of 200 people, especially if there's 180 of them are looking angry and disagreeing with everything he's saying. Although Chris Guy is this type of personality, I guess would just love that. All right, but cool. So you like that concept?
Absolutely. Yeah, love it.
Awesome. Let's let Untraceable jump in. Untraceable helped us out a lot with putting the event together. He saw a lot of the behind the scenes. Untraceable, what do you got, man?
I would also just echo everything that Crypt0 Bear said. Free speech is absolute, and I would support the uncensored version of Monerotopia. And if you got whatever direction you guys go, like you said, you have to protect your image or self-interest or whatever it is. I'm not going to hold it against you guys. It's a tough decision to make, but it's the uncensored version, the one that is most aligned with what I believe Monero enables, free speech. And yeah, that's all I have to say, really.
Do you think the uncensored version one can be done, or are we just trying to do something that's impossible?
It's a really cool idea. I mean, like you said, I've never heard of anyone do a format like this, and it would be an experiment for sure. But the way you describe it, it seems to me like it could be like it could work. Yeah. I didn't know the part that you would actually refund the Monero. Maybe instead of doing that, it could just be donated to CCSs or something. Or yeah, it could just be like a deposit where you refund it. But to me, it seems like a very cool idea.
Yeah, I think it should be refunded because I mean they're already giving up their time, putting in a ton of work. Some of these talks, people prepare quite a bit, and they're flying down there, and so they shouldn't then be charged to speak. I think it's seeing more of as they're putting a down payment to prove, number one, that they're actually into Monero to some degree, and then it just kind of creates some barrier there of entry, so we don't just get it, spam essentially.
Yeah, I like it. It's cool. That's what I would vote for if it was up to a vote.
Cool, man. Cool.
Okay.
This is good. This is encouraging. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of the other end of it too, and we might hear in DM. So if you're opposed to this right now, don't wait and just go run on Reddit and be like, yeah, look at these idiots.
Talk about it now.
Talk about it now. Come out and talk about it now. If you're watching now, come on and talk about it now. If you think this is the dumbest idea you've ever heard, now is your time to speak. We were not going to ridicule you.
Can I say something about this, like about the idea that you had?
Yes.
Sure.
So I think the issue of this is that it would basically mean that mostly people would come and speak that are already in the Monero community. But I think in the long run, to succeed, we need to bring in people that don't use Monero at the moment. And I think that especially on the more left-wing side, these terms don't have that much meaning nowadays anymore. But I think on the left-wing side, Monero is not used as much as I would like to see. And I think that especially for example, Black Lives Matter in New York, they do great work against these racist and fascist vaccine mandates. And I think this aligns very well with the Monero values. And instead of having this kind of grifting personality like this guy doing this kind of work, we should try to give more of a stage to Black Lives Matter and the great work they do in New York against these racist and fascist policies, like how they call these policies to vaccinate everyone with these experimental vaccines. And I think that's actually something, I reached out to them, I wrote them an email if they want to add a Monero donation address, because I would really like to donate to their cause. And I think it can maybe be an entrance, because right now they don't have any cryptocurrency addresses for donations. It could be an entrance for us to introduce them to Monero and to the ideas behind it, and also to the fact that right now the banking system has many bad things, and especially these whole credit scoring things are very bad because they discriminate against people of color. And often Black people have a worse credit score, and there's studies about this. So I think we should highlight this fact that right now the banking system is very racist, and it's basically disadvantaging people of color and people from the global south. And we need to switch this narrative away from, okay, Monero is this evil thing used by evil people. It's actually the cure to this whole problem that we have with this banking system that basically excludes most of the world from the digital economy, and at the same time discriminates against people of color. And I think we really need to show that Monero is the solution to this problem, because of the privacy and because of our ideals. And I think, that would be a good idea to bring these people into the space. I don't know, what do you think about it?
All great points. All great points. It's the same concept as trying to bring the Chris Skies of the world into it, right? On the other side of the spectrum, ignoring all the points that Geonic made, which is that the guy is just insane. But yeah, this idea of bringing in these people that would benefit from using the technology in a very real way to help their cause. Totally agree with that. That's what we were going for. But I don't know if somebody like them coming to talk would be productive, because maybe they don't have much to say about Monero right now. Maybe it would almost make sense for somebody like you, Spirobel, to come and talk about this concept, research it more deeply, and formalize really good arguments as to why a group like Black Lives Matter should be using Monero, encouraging the use of Monero, and why it aligns with what they're trying to achieve. Or if you could get somebody from their movement to come talk about it, but they don't yet understand Monero. So for them to show up, they'd just be like, yeah, like
I mean, the problem is that right now I don't really have a platform. Like, you are basically like the face of Monero on YouTube, and the problem is I try to reach out to them, but I think, and I try to, like, they even asked, like, the Hawk Newsome from Black Lives Matter New York, Greater New York, like, he even said, like, I asked him, yeah, can you add a Monero donation address? And he just asked, how do I do that? Like, he didn't even ask why. So, but the problem was afterwards, I explained it to him, and maybe he thought it's a scam or something, because I said, oh, it's this weird long address, and it's maybe something that they are suspicious about. So the problem is, if I reach out to them, because I don't really have a face yet on YouTube.
There is no outreach or anything. If you want to send me a message, we could come up with something where we can put there's been a lot of work for putting educational material for what we consider like the normie audience. And so, yeah, if you shoot me, I'm on Twitter, but just shoot me a message and we could figure that one out. Because I agree with you. I want to, give everyone a voice, even at times when I might not agree with people. I want to empower them to have a voice with that. Now, like I've said, I'm ultimate when it comes to free speech, but yeah, you have a point that there's a lack of that outreach, and without a voice of what they deem as authority, a lot of individuals and groups will not look at a random person telling them about this money online, right? Which it doesn't help build trust. So there's a lot of work being done on that and stuff. So yeah, just shoot me a message, and we're working hard on making like material for that and how to onboard people in a friendly way.
Let's get a Monero.
Okay, that's very cool. I just want to make one quick point. I think that like Shivona Newsome and Hawk Newsome, maybe they would be a good candidate to interview on Monero Talk. I think it would be very good to reach out to them and just have a conversation with this crowd, because right now we never really talk to them. And I think it wouldn't be good if just me pontificating about the stuff. I think they should be given a stage. I think it would be very cool. I would be very happy.
I would totally have them on the show, man. Especially if they're willing to come and talk about it in those terms. 100%. And we'll, I encourage you to keep following up with them. We could try as well, but we're not any better suited than you in terms of trying to get somebody to listen to us. If anything, it might be more genuine coming from somebody who's just, doesn't appear to have any, incentives other than trying to make somebody aware of something, whereas it might look like we're just trying to, help our show, Monero UK, where's he? Because I feel like he was up here right away, and then we
no, it said he was just listening.
Oh, he was just listening.
Yeah, okay. That's why.
Who else we got? Dr.Trace, you wanna chime in on all this?
And Tyler also. I think
Tyler.
Do you want to say hello, or you're just hanging out? Tyler, you want to chat, or you're just hanging up there just because we'll remove you so we could have more people up that actually want to speak?
Yeah, I'm waiting for Tyler to speak up first.
Tyler, what do you got?
Tyler.
You hear me?
Going.
Tyler, you there?
Hello?
Yeah, you got it.
Hi, we can hear you.
You're on the stage, man. What do you want to say?
I was muted. So yeah, I was talking for a bit there. No,
we missed it all.
Aw. Rewind.
You censored yourself.
I did, yeah. No, I listened to Crypt0 Bear there. Very well spoken. I agree with everything you were saying. Myself, like, I'm in Canada. So Chris has come over to a couple of cities in my province, and I'll be honest, I don't like the guy. I would have said he would have hijacked the conference. However, I don't believe he should have been censored from Monerotopia. That's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm a true believer that, the only way to combat disinformation is with more information, not censorship. And it's, one of those things where you can't legislate morality. Like, if he would have been booed off stage, boom, the community would have taken care of him himself. But I mean, that's just my opinion, and I'm saying I don't like the guy.
Yeah.
Let ideas speak from themselves, and then let people decide if they support those ideas or not. And
self-filter kind of thing is what.
Let the free market reign which ideas are good and which ones are not, but you got to enable the free market of ideals to go in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Exactly.
100%. I mean, that's a big part of what the United States is supposed to be about, right? When you really look at the Constitution, some of the most important things there, it's about protecting minority opinions, always allowing a minority opinion to get airtime to the point where it can't be just squashed by the majority. Because if that can happen, then tyranny just takes over. Which once again is why we're also into Monero. Dr.Trace, what do you want to say, man? And in your response, let us know what you think about this new concept, if you think it's something that could potentially work.
Hey, guys. Hey, sorry that you had to go through all of that, by the way, first of all, right?
Thanks.
You guys are in the limelight. You guys are like, the voice of the community in a way, but you are independent people. You have your own opinions. It does not have to be the same like everybody else. And by the way, I really like everybody else who has come up on stage and shared their thoughts. I'm in the same camp. So I didn't know much about Sky, right? Except for that interview. I did not like it that much. Like, it didn't come off as somebody who wants to know about Monero or cryptocurrency. Like, he has his own thoughts, which is fine. It may not necessarily align with me, but I didn't see like a good, from within, a kind of deal for Monero from that interview. It was okay, but I didn't read much about him except for that one video that has been floating around for a while, where he was, giving an idea about what the government wants and all that. I am not vaxxed. I am anti-mandate. I support everybody who has their own opinion about it. Whatever. I actually lost a cousin to the Delta variant, by the way. Young guy, 31 years old, like my aunt's son. So it may help somebody, it may not. Now, on the other hand, vaccines have also destroyed part of my family. So again, I'm very, very free speech proponent. I had no problem with this guy coming, right? I started speaking, or at least tweeting about it, once I saw how he reacted that day. Up until that point, I was very neutral. I had seen the post on Reddit where they were alluding to him making racist comments and all that. Sure, we don't agree with all that crap, but everybody needs a voice and everybody should get a platform. I had no problem with it. But once I saw how he was responding to you, I got even more offended from that. I know you were being diplomatic, but his responses to you pissed me off big time. And then I saw Geonic, post like, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out," and I was like, exactly. I don't care. Probably 99% of the Monero community believes in free speech, right? Those who are true Monero lovers, they all like that. Your views may not align with mine, but I definitely want you to have a voice and a platform. I may disagree with you, but the guy was being a jerk. And I also have this other thing I would say, where people who are very loud and anti-government, and sometimes they are just professional actors. It's like Edward Snowden. I don't believe those people, and your view may be different than mine. I don't care. Like, I do not believe all these guys really are trying to think about people and all that. Sometimes they are even getting prompted by the dark side of the government to go and do all that kind of crap and polarize people. So I may be wrong about that. I thought he very well fit.
But I think we have to believe some actors at least, because otherwise, like, the strategy can also be used to basically destroy a movement by saying, okay, by sowing distrust. And I think that, for example, Chivona Newsom in New York, like, the way she fights against the vaccine mandates, it seems way more genuine than the kind of stuff that Chris Sky does. So I think, like, we really need to give like a platform to the right kind of people in the fight.
Yeah, I was getting there, Spirobel. I like, not everybody, right? Obviously, that's common sense, right? Not everybody is going to be like that, but sometimes those kind of elements are there. They try to divide people, or they gatekeep. They try to draw, one line of thought and, into one side and polarize the community in general. Again, I'm not judgmental. I'm okay with somebody else judging me. I do not care, but I'm not like that. I did not have any of those things, but the way he was reacting to Doug pissed me off. Well, even now, I will say that he's more than welcome to do whatever he feels like, with Monero, without Monero. I'm not against that. But the guy was being a jerk. Period.
And he just showed an utter lack of understanding about what crypto is by conflating a conference with a protocol, right? Like to say Monero shot itself in the face because
and
like,
all
dude,
that
you just don't understand how this works. It's built, the vast majority of people actually working on the protocol itself, developing it. They're not even out here on Reddit talking about it. They're not even participating in it.
Exactly, Doug. Exactly.
They're anonymous to building a protocol.
What has he done? What has he done since you interviewed him? Did he even post like a Monero address? Did he post a single tweet about Monero? Nothing. He's just an attention seeker. And like I said, he is free to say what he wants to say. No question about it. He's free to even come even after all these nonsense. That's free speech, and most of the Monero community will believe in that. But don't try to tell me that he's not a jerk. He's pure jerk.
I think the part that I also pick up on it too is that he rose to prominence a lot, and I find that a lot of times opposing views become the speakers of opposing views from the mainstream narrative tend to be the most disingenuous and unlikable people. And sometimes I think it's just by design, or two, that opposing viewpoints never make it out of the bubble unless there's a very polarizing individual behind them. What I don't like about him is when you see videos of him, when you do stuff, there's a reason that most videos are selfie posted. They're right at the right angle. That's a good angle for, like, this is my nice angle, right? It's very narcissistically driven to kind of funnel all the attention back to him. So although he might be speaking of points and everything, it's kind of just basic clout chasing, but instead of showing a Lamborghini and buy my course, it's basically like, I'm censored against, smiles to the camera, but we will not be stopped. We will keep doing this, right? And it basically becomes a brand in its own. And that's something I don't like, because he's constantly throwing people under the bus, and the moment that he doesn't see a specific organization, group, people, or tool to his advantage, he completely throws it under the bus, and it helps feed his narrative as the world is against me. Right. So
this is why I love Monero, because of guys like you, Bear. This is exactly 100% what I feel, what I think as well.
The other unfortunate thing to see is people take advantage of this scenario to then go pitch their projects. You got like the Pirate Chain guys jumping in, like we said, Jeff Berwick. I don't know if you want to play that video. Do you have that video? I don't know if you, but it was just ridiculous to see, Chris Guy criticized it without showing a lack of understanding. But then you see these other coins criticize, like Pirate Chain people, saying, this would never happen in Pirate Chain, and because that they're more censorship resistant, just ridiculous. So anybody who's kind of new to this, watches us and sees those things and now is like on the fence thinking about it. Well, is this the end of Monero? Does this mean, Monero isn't a censorship? No, guys, absolutely not. He's just showing.
Please don't play this.
Let's play it because it's embarrassing to him. Go ahead.
We'll see what happens. But my point was, I used to talk about like finance and cryptos. I barely do it anymore. Bitcoin's almost at $70,000 now, and I'm mentioning it like 45 minutes into this video, just as like a side mention.
It's coming on, Ivan.
I saw Dero, which it's still for Pirate Chains. Just although more and more, I'm wondering if I really want to support Monero that much, because there's a bunch of SJW, total libtard vaccine pushers who want vaccines to be mandatory, that are even like involved in the Monero group, like the coders or whatever you call those guys. So it's kind of getting like this. Here was me in the 2010s and many other people.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
When tyranny becomes.
So, I mean, just showing an utter lack of understanding there, right? He's concerned about politics seeping into Monero to the point where he thinks.
But I mean, we can counter this now with saying, okay, we have other people in here that actually fight the vaccine in real life and not just on Instagram.
Yeah, but that's not even what it's about, though. You know, people can be for the vaccine, against the vaccine, for Black Lives Matter, for Chris Sky. Doesn't matter. It's all back to that point that Geonic made, that there, is no Monero community. It's like having an internet community, and people are all going to have their individual opinions in politics, but the protocol is built in such a way that it's still going to be digital cash. So I don't see the concern there, and I don't see.
I think it's more,
this
and
has to do with it.
This happens a lot in specific niche projects, groups, whatever. The moment they start to become popular, you start getting outsiders who don't maybe necessarily share the same ideals as the first generation of whoever was involved in a project. But then there's two ways to move about that. People either embrace them and try to teach them why, for example, free speech is important, things like that, or people start gatekeeping because you don't want to water down your ideals. The problem with gatekeeping to keep your idealistically pure project is that it ends up alienating people and your project can't get popular. And it's a catch-22. Monero becomes very popular. You're going to see people who are maybe for censorship or against everything you believe in using it and saying Monero actually means using it to I'm trying to think of a good example that doesn't sound ridiculous, but it could just be something like Monero is actually a McDonald's coin, right? It should be only for McDonald's, and that's what I believe in. It's a corporate coin, right? And everybody believes that. It gets watered down eventually. We cannot gatekeep it to keep the ideologies in a community pure, because that ends up alienating and it prevents people from coming in. The more mainstream that something becomes, the more watered down the original ideals happen to become. Look at it. It happened with Bitcoin. You have people, and not to sidetrack too much, but there's this whole ordeal with anybody who's Bitcoin related, talks about any other project that's not Bitcoin. They're a shitcoiner, blah, blah, blah. How could you? You're against us. When they fail to realize, man, this is a lot of people who just came onto the space, and being able to be called a shitcoiner by somebody who didn't even know what Bitcoin was till a year and a half ago from a YouTube video, and they might just be buying this stuff on Robinhood or something, right? I think it's just a great example of this. They have lost the ideological way, and a lot of newcomers just see, for example, the prices going up, so numbers go up, things like that. It's just something that's going to happen. We've got to be careful. I would love for Monero to be this cypherpunk group. Eventually, that's not what it's going to be recognized at. It's going to be just very good digital cash, right? And, the first thing they pop up, it's not some dude in a bear mask with his rifle or something, right? It's going to be, hey, this is it's a good project, good technology, this sort of thing. So ideologically, we can't gatekeep it, because that's what happens. And I understand it, because I feel that innate need to gatekeep it so that we could still have this cohesive group identity, right? But it's something you gotta be careful for. But so I feel for that, because yeah, I'd love Monero to always be this ideology, but eventually it gets watered down, and that's just a byproduct and cost of success in a project.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
But I think right now at the moment, if we say, okay, there's no Monero community, I think it's a bit naive, because I think right now, we are a bit in a bubble here. It's a bit of a thought bubble. We all agree with each other, and we all have the same ideology. We all have the same kind of thinking. And that's why, maybe it's a bit annoying, but I'm trying to push for bringing in people with a different way of thinking. And they might have a different way of thinking and a different background than us, but they still, and might be socialized in a different way, but still we might fight the same cause, fighting against a system that is not good at the moment and building a better one. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Enemies of my enemies are always going to be an asset and a friend, right? So there's this group, Operation Normies, and it's basically being able to create marketing material for people outside of the cryptocurrency bubble and all this, specifically for Monero, and showing how Monero can work, help them. And it's got all this different stuff from TikTokers and people who are just interested in what these new subsections of cryptocurrency that I haven't heard about, to people that are looking into private money and where Bitcoin falls short and things like that. So I think that would be a really nice tie-in. And for sure, I would love to be able to help you get there. And two,
I'm also in this group. It's on Element, right? On Matrix.
Yeah, on Element. So we've floated that idea, and we could definitely put a little bit more energy on there for that one, because like I said, I want to empower opposing viewpoints that might not agree with me. I think just the tricky part is we need to make sure that we put these points that we do have common ground in, because if not, it's too easy for groups to say, for example, I like guns, but there might be an anti-gun group, and they might say, well, you like guns, we're not going to use your tool, you gun loving, whatever, right? But if you focus on, hey, for example, I like guns, but say that's because I work at a gun company. Now, if you accept Bitcoin donations and I pay you in Bitcoin, my employer is going to see I donated to an anti-gun group. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to get fired. Monero fixes that, right? So we can find these common grounds that don't have to be so idealistically driven, because it's logical. And I think it takes, I don't want to be canceled by all the cypherpunks for saying that I'm supporting someone that might support censorship or things like that. But I think it's needed to have opposing viewpoints. And there's nothing more cypherpunk than that. You get ideals that you oppose, and you're helping them have a voice in a community that maybe doesn't have a voice for this, right?
So Crypt0 Bear, just a question. Would you agree or disagree, though, like what we're dealing with now with Mr. Sky, as Monero gains traction and grows, there'll probably be bigger and bigger, more organized hit pieces against Monero. So this is, to me, I just see this as a growing pain that kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah.
As the asset gains value and more and more value.
I think about the Forbes article that came out. Monero gets mentioned. They're still talking about Fluffy Pony. Yeah. I mean, it's to this degree that I really think, one, either people are out of touch with what's really going on, things like that. But yeah, it's going to be.
They're trying to pump their own projects.
Yeah, they're not. It was a very bad article, and Howard has reached out to that author before, saying, "Hey, this is not a privacy coin. This is not a." Sorry to cut you off, Bear. By the way, sorry, but this is not a privacy coin. This is not a private coin, and they always throw in Zcash along with Monero on the same sentence everywhere. That's on purpose as well. It's social engineering. And I actually tweeted it back to her. She was like, oh yeah, I love Monero, blah, blah. Nope. That's all intentional. It's not an oversight.
How do we get writers on there, by the way? Because I think with us all trying to be like, hey, we're Monero people, right? There's this love for anything that's not mainstream we like avoid, right? And think about it. Doug, you were called a normie, and I'm like, man, we really are out here, because I take offense if somebody called me that. That seems like an insult, right? But to the average person, it might not be, and things like that. But like the Forbes article is a great example. We don't have a mainstream appearance into the realm, so the only people that are talking about it are people who don't have the best interest of the project at heart. Right? Think about how many times it took for CNBC to finally mention Monero, when there were pieces about ransomware groups and things like that, where there was a Monero-centric piece of news, and they just use vague online non-Bitcoin cryptocurrency, right? So I think we also need to look into how we can proactively be able to, because we have a lot of smart people in the community. We have a lot of drama that we know of, or things like that, or technological things that we could write upon that are very great for their views.
Yeah, and I think like the best thing, the best idea might be to go and get Black Lives Matter involved, because if you don't want to be canceled, it's a good idea to be Black Lives Matter. So I think that we need to have a strategy on how to get into the mainstream narrative and not be branded as a terrorist and whatnot, and be canceled and blocked with KYC and anti-money laundering and whatnot. And I think the strategy to go there needs to go through politics. Like there's no other way. Like money is inherently a political thing. And I think like the idea that public discourse is this kind of thing where we all come together, we talk in a rational way, and we need to advocate for Monero, and then everything will be fine. I think it's not like how it works. it's very irrational, it's very chaotic, and it's just like which narrative wins. And we need to establish alternative narratives instead of engaging in this dialogue with bad faith people like that make bad faith arguments against Monero. And we will only lose this way because they bring us into their narrative, and we just strengthen their narrative this way. And we need to establish different narratives, alternative narratives, and make them catch on. And I think calling out the banking system as racist is like probably the biggest step we need to take in this fight. And it's because it's true. It's not something made up. It's just something that is not in the sunlight yet, and we need to bring sunlight to this issue.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's just a couple of things. Politics, as the way you see it, is you're seeing it as politics and political groups and everything are just a tool, and they're being used by people who try to stifle innovation, cryptocurrencies, even the banking system, right? They donate a lot of money to groups, specifically like BLM and everything, because they've understand that they can co-opt political movements, because politics and identity politics in the modern sphere are a tool. And just like any tool, it can be used for any direction. So kind of from what I'm hearing is we need to make sure that we're using the same logic and the same strategies that big groups are using, but be able to use it to create a uncancelable version of Monero, right?
But I don't think it's like we are using them. I think it's just we are making sure that, okay, they know that we are in the same boat. We fight the same thing. And I think like using them sounds so cynical, but I don't think it's about using anything. It's just like trying to understand what the public discourse, how it works, and trying to find allies. And I think right now these divisions between like the right wing and Chris Guy is maybe a bad example, but they brand like anti-vaccine mandate movements as right wing, while actually on the left side and BLM, these are supposedly opposites in the mainstream narrative, but we need to make sure that these narratives break, and that we make sure that, okay, actually these opposing forces are actually not opposing, and then this dialectic like breaks down. If we can break this dialectic between, okay, there's BLM, and then on the other side there's these evil right-wingers that don't want to take the vaccine that don't want to have these vaccine mandates. It's actually both of these groups are one, and they should be united and fight against this shitty system.
So Spirobel, basically you're saying, if I understand you correctly, align yourselves with the political flavor of the time so we can't be canceled.
I think he means there are groups that, while we might not politically agree with a lot of things, when there is key things, we have middle ground. For example, with BLM of, hey, systemic, if we're going to talk about systemic racism, banking, central banking is a huge one, and it affects everyone, right? And you could even make the argument that disproportionately it affects certain communities more than others. But the problem is that we focus so much on differences about how they deal with systematic racism. Do we need to do reparations? Do we need to make another tax? Do we need to cancel people that said something offensive? That there is common ground, especially from the ground up versus the top down, right? As an organization, they're very big. So when I said getting used, those organizations are getting used from the top down by a lot of corporate interests, right? Because it helps them become the political flavor of the month. But what I think you're referring to is from a real grassroots effort from the lower levels, being able to empower them with the tools to use Monero and things like that, because it really strengthens the community. 2, there's more people using it. 3, it shows that there is a diversity of thought in the community for Monero, right? Which I think diversity.
I mean, actually, like BLM, if you look at BLM, there's a grassroots component to it. Like some of it is being used by bigger powers, but some of it is genuine. And for example, if you look at, as I said, like Black Lives Matter, Greater New York, like these people are for real. Like this is people.
Spirobel. I don't think anybody. You just keep repeating yourself there with the like. Sure, let's go get them on board. Go get Black Lives Matter. Go write them an email right now. I mean, I don't think anybody.
I think the issue he was running in is he didn't have with his viewer follower account, things like that. Is they were looking at him like, who's this person, the random person who's talking about this project or whatever. So I think he was trying to see if there was a way to get a bigger, group behind it, right?
Yeah, maybe do a Reddit post and get other people interested that are interested in. I think he has great ideas there, and he's expressing them very well. I think Monero obviously does solve an issue of the current banking system being being not fair to certain groups, and that should be highlighted. I think we do. People do talk about it, but I think he's right. It should be highlighted more. So go ahead, man. Write up a Reddit post, perhaps. Get people behind you. They could help you, and then get the word out. It looks like they've already been communicating with you because you forwarded the email to us. So that's a good sign. I just want to move on to something else because I just feel like we've made that point like 5 times already. So just for the sake of good YouTube here, we have Monero.
Monero means money.
Monero means money. You wanna jump
hello?
in? Say something.
Hello. Or have you just been listening?
Yeah, I have a lot of disjointed thoughts on the issue, so I'm
great voice, man. Great
I
mic.
know.
Jesus, all right, hey, this guy's good.
Yeah. So if my username on StreamYard doesn't give it away, my position is that generally speaking, we should leave money to being money. I disagree that money can't be separate from politics. I think I'd rather that it totally can be separate from politics. And the situation that went down last week, I think it was now, very sad to see. I didn't like how we lost the opportunity, like regardless of what anyone wants to say about Chris Sky. I'm not exactly a fan either. But regardless of what you want to say, he has over 100,000 followers on Twitter. That's big exposure for Monero. There were going to be a lot of people that would have received the message about Monero and maybe joined the community. I think we lost an opportunity there, but hopefully there's going to be more.
Yeah, I agree. That was the original intent with having him on. That was what we were thinking there. What do you think of this new concept that we're throwing out there, potentially pursuing reformatting the conference in a way where there are no gatekeepers and people that want to speak essentially self-book? Did you hear us talk about that?
I did tune in for that part. I think that's a really good idea. I don't know how that fits into the, I guess, physically being there in person situation. So I guess technology aside, I'm not really sure how that works, but that sounds really exciting. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, because part of what we're trying to achieve today is just get feedback from people. Anybody else want to bring up some points, new points, or maybe we'll start to wrap it up. I would like to kind of let's go around, get everybody's final thoughts, and if you can, in those final thoughts, just kind of re-express what you think we should do with the event at this point. I like this idea of trying out this new thing, and I think it just kind of gets rid of the blemish. But just so everybody's aware, it's going to come with, some risk and cost on the other side, because we may have people that were going to speak at the first one that may now not want to be a part because of the new format. But would like to hear, now that we have 6 people up, your final thoughts on it and how you think we should proceed, whether or not you think we should approach the Monero community more, perhaps with a Reddit post or something, or some kind of poll. But go ahead, guys. Maybe start with Crypt0 Bear.
Yeah, I like that you're getting feedback into being able to give it back to the community whenever there's anything that might be up for disagreement. I think maybe having a site where people can do call for papers so that you're able to get all the people who want to speak up front. 2, you put a public view wallet up on the site, and then each sub address represents a different speaker, right? So that people can vote on which speakers or which talks they want to hear. And you go through that. That way it's community funded. You don't necessarily need to know who voted for what, that type of thing. It completely removes any attack surface from people saying that, you're giving preferential treatment, things like that. Downsides is we need to make sure somebody doesn't just run in, donate a bunch of money themselves so that they could basically run an ad, right? And I think that's a great way to go about that. Another route you might want to look into is you have Monerotopia, and you could have a side conference to that, or maybe like a smaller room, smaller projection screen, whatever it is, and that one's the uncensored version, right? Or Monerotopia After Dark, where uncensored talks go up and anything goes, right? Or whatever it is. That way it's branded as exactly what it is. Any opposition or anything that tries to get thrown your way actually helps build its branding while still retaining the ability for, I think some speakers just don't want to be, you know, it's easy for me to say this as you know, I'm using the Crypt0 Bear identity, but it's very hard to go from a professional standpoint into a conference. All anybody needs to do is throw accusations at some other person. They, you know, call the conference some extremist viewpoint, and all of a sudden your employer is asking you why you're an extremist, right? So I think that's kind of a way to shield from both, because it allows free speech. It also allows the ability for speakers to say, hey, I went to this part of the conference, if they want to be protected from that, because I think, you know, we're quick to judge people who walk out of those talks, but it's oftentimes there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of pressure. You don't want them to, you know, not be able to feed their kids just to make a point at something that not too many people other than a couple of people disagreed with or something, right? So those are my thoughts on that.
Very, very, very good points, and I'll probably be following up with you. Maybe you could help us iron that out a little bit if we
move for sure.
Direction. Tyler, what were your Cindy? Do you want?
Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, you bet. No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, why not try it? I mean, you're never going to know if you don't try something new. So I say, why not? What do we got to lose?
Awesome, man. Thanks for
coming. I'm all for it. But one thing I'd like to just ask you, Douglas, is when it comes to promoting it and getting more speakers, as far as like individuals like ourselves, what does that look like promoting it? Like, I don't know if you got my email. I CC'd you on it, I think a couple of months ago on this email, but it was a news feed that I used called South Point, and they had donations, and it had Bitcoin Cash. I emailed them. I said, you know, why don't you use Monero? I think the week after they included Monero. I don't know if you saw that, but is that something that, you know, as individuals, as a grassroots movement, when we see things that are asking for payment in Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or whatever, and they don't have Monero listed, that we could each as individuals say, hey, why don't you have Monero?
100%, man. That's amazing work that you're doing and that you actually achieved it. And that's what Spirobel is getting at. And that's what he's trying to do. And encourage anybody else to do that. If you're ever, you know, you're out there on the interwebs, you see somebody accepting crypto and they have a donation address, but they don't have a Monero one, especially people that would benefit most from this concept of censorship resistant money, where people can't even see the donations. I know I've done it with a few people where that's how I got Chris Sky interested in Monero in the first place. I sent him you know, a picture of all the donations that have been made to him in Bitcoin, and be like, yo, bro, everybody can see your donations. You might want to be using something like Monero. So yeah, man, great work, and encourage others to do the same.
So just on that one, sorry, not to deviate too much, but I was playing around with the idea of, I was actually looking into the transaction donations for Gab, like the social media site. Because they're so big about, you know, they've been banned from literally every payment processor and everything. And they don't want their users to be, you know, like, hey, you donated money to this. But, you know, the Bitcoin addresses are very, very clear on there and everything. So I've been toying around with the idea that, you know, if you could show that there's a correlation between addresses, users, or maybe, you know, all it takes is, hey, this user is correlated with this donation, with this and that, right? You can show that it's a terrible payment mechanism for a platform that is afraid of having its users canceled, right? And I think that's another thing of being able to find use cases for individuals, groups, or whatever platforms that really don't have access to banking because of politics, right? But I also understand that in its own is a very uphill battle because, you know, in the current scheme is everything's politicized so much, right? So
yeah. All right.
Yep. Spirobel.
Yeah, let's move on.
We're
Spirobel.
Final words.
Yeah,
and didn't mean to deter you in any way, man. I think keep pushing. I just don't want to hear the thing repeated over and over again. Keep pushing, and you know, anybody.
Yeah, I think I wasn't really repeating. I just tried to go deeper into this topic, but maybe it's like derailing this conversation about Monerotopia because it's not really focused on Monerotopia. So yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about this money as like a political tool. And I think that especially nation-state currencies like the US dollar and the Chinese yuan are used as political tools, as geopolitical tools. It's used to not just ban people, but big companies and use political force. And I think the whole deal about Monero is that it's the only apolitical currency out there. It's not discriminating based on gender, race, skin color, political affiliation, or vaccination status. So that's what I think is really great about Monero.
Awesome, man. And what I was trying to say before too is, I don't know if you'd have the ability to do this. Maybe you'd be interested in talking at the conference as well, you know, and talking on this topic and laying it out to people and making the cogent argument as to why we should be reaching out to certain groups, and certain groups should be more motivated to use Monero for those purposes.
I just think that I mean, thank you very much, but I think that actually these certain groups should be given the platform. That's what I'm thinking. Like maybe like we should just have this conversation with them and let them speak instead of me. Like, who am I? Like, they are the ones that need the platform, not me.
Well, you're somebody that would then be describing to them why they should be using it. But I get what you're saying.
I don't want to preach to them. They should like know themselves.
Okay.
All right. Untraceable.
Untraceable.
Final thoughts.
Chris Sky is a shithead, and he has shown that he does not really care about Monero nor what it means. Same kind of goes to what Jeff Berwick said, but that's not the point. I think the whole cancellation thing sets a precedent to where, okay, well, I also don't like this person. Why are you not canceling them, or why are they allowed to speak? So the uncensored version that you guys have pitched is a great idea, in my opinion.
Awesome, man. And we'll be following up with you more. You've helped us so much so far. Greatly appreciate it, man. Greatly
thank you
appreciate it.
so much. Geonic, final words?
Yeah. No, I love the idea. And I mean, something like this was bound to happen. And you guys have gotten some pushback before about certain guests on the show and so on, but this was really, I think, blown out of proportion a little bit. But you know, I just hope it doesn't dissuade you and it doesn't turn you off from participating in Monero as much as you have, because you guys are so valuable to the Monero cause. You know, putting out content on a regular basis out there. So, I mean, anything we can do to support your work, just let us know. I think there's a lot of people out there who you don't know love Monero Talk as much as they do. I mean, there's thousands of supporters out there. You guys have, you know, probably tens of thousands. So keep doing what you do.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate
that
it.
Was sweet. Thank you very much.
We did have some dark times there
yes,
last
we did.
week. We were like, maybe we'll
it's been a rough week.
huddle our Monero and turn everything off, you know, come back in 10 years and see what the price is at.
Yeah, that really means a lot. Thanks, all of you guys, for being here, obviously, and talking to us and joining us on the show.
Luckily, I have a very short-term memory for that. Just keep moving.
Dr. Trace, any final words?
No, not much beyond what already has been mentioned. And thank you guys, obviously. And it'll be great if somebody can reach out to Guy from YouTube. He's a very big Monero fan, has a huge audience, bigger than
the Coin
Bureau guy.
Yeah, Coin Bureau guy. He has a bigger audience than guys like Sky, who do not give a shit about Monero, right?
Yeah.
The narcissism is exactly how it is.
Yeah, we've tried.
We'll, he was on our list of potential speakers. Haven't been able to get in touch with him.
But other than that, great job, guys. Don't let others get to you, and keep doing what you're doing. We are behind you. We're supportive of you.
Oh, thank you.
Cheers, brother.
Cheerios. And last but not least, Monero means money, not politics. Final words.
Sure. I guess I think we should just try to keep things non-specific to Chris Sky. It's more about, I guess, what this means for the project and the community as a whole. So obviously Monero is growing and people are still learning how much influence they have and what kind of responsibility it takes to make decisions that are in the interest of the project, regardless of one's own politics. So I think that's something that'll develop over time as we grow. And I just want to thank you guys so much for the work you do for the project, and please keep it up. And like the other said, please don't let it get to you.
Oh,
Greatly
okay,
appreciate it, man.
Honestly, you guys are awesome.
Start that podcast, man. You don't even need to say anything of substance. That
Just be like,
voice is mesmerizing. Just get out
I'll
there.
call in here.
Start talking about Monero. All right, everybody. Great show.
Yeah.
We were a little unsure of how things were going to go down today. We were a little nervous about it, but we just acted like ourselves, which we always try to do. Greatly appreciated all the support, all the insights. Amazing show today, guys. I hope people continue to tune in, and we get larger and larger every week. We get more interaction for the community. This is what we need. I think, like we said at some point earlier, there's so much miscommunication that takes place on Twitter and on Reddit. Being here, talking kind of face to face, I think really does help with these discussions. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. And yeah, once again, your kind words are really appreciated. And we appreciate your time today and support throughout this entire thing. And I guess we'll see you next time, next week at same time, next Saturday at 11 a.m. So hope to see you guys then. And cheers. Have a good weekend.
Cheers. I got no coffee left.
Bye.
Pour a little in here. Cheers, guys.
Cheerio.
Bye.